going to be here, just be a little bit late.
I don't have an email either, so I was just looking.
Okay.
She was there last night and I haven't
Yes.
heard from her.
All right. Can we get an approval of the minutes from June 9th?
Oh, we didn't call to order? I didn't hear a time.
4:33.
4:33. Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Gary, move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
And that second is by, you just have to say your name.
Aaron. Second by
Thank you.
Aaron.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments? All right, seeing,
Jennifer, Jennifer, I have a comment. You have a A+ in meeting management, following all the protocols. Good job.
oh, thanks. I try. All those in favor, and please say your name. We'll start with Gary.
I approve.
Aaron, I approve.
Tom, I approve.
So moved. Mark, are there any public comments you received?
I'm not aware of any, Jennifer. And as always, if there was anything that came in after that period, we will report it out at the next meeting.
Okay, very good. I have not received any as well. Mike, have you received any?
No.
Okay, then we will move on to new business. Principals report.
So I just wanted to go over, there's really been no change, in what we're thinking about enrollment. There have been some requests that have come in. I'm still anticipating, potentially a loss of 12 students. And we've had some, like I said, requests from other school comes in. I have Stephanie calling those just to make sure those parents know what they need to do if they are no longer living in Trenton. So she was making calls on Monday. I did want to say that in terms of kindergarten registration, that's one thing that we are doing as a, I just let in Darcy. We're working on a registration process together with the potential of having that happen on Power Schools so that all the information is universal and the same across the schools. We're just sort of waiting to hear from Elaine at the district office. And then I am working with other principals and one of the other secretaries with Rhonda Fortin at Southwest Harbor to pull that together. And then we're going to do a joint letter that goes out to all families around the registration process. There's questions around not only getting all the paperwork in, but then all the other schools have not done any sort of screening for students. And that's a sort of part of the process that we need to walk through. We are in the enviable position here in Trenton that our kids were in the pre-K program, the majority of them, and we could just sort of have a conversation and get some data from the Down East Community Partners and Sarah on where our kids are. So I'm feeling okay that I'll sort of know where our kids are when we start, but we still need to do that screening process. And so, hopefully by the end of next week, we'll have some answers and get some information out to parents, because I know that they're eager. We get calls about signing up. And so we want to be able to make sure we're able to answer those questions sort of district-wide. What else did I want to highlight? Oh, I just wanted to thank, the promotion ceremony. It was great to have a photographer there. I put sort of one picture as we were trying to figure out how to dress up the ceremony, because I haven't spoken to you guys really since then. And I chose the pictures of the mascot and the shirt that the kids got. And I thought the team did a really nice job of making it seem like a really wonderful event and a thoughtful event, for all of the kids. And then, just again, another shout out to the volunteer fire department and Steve Corson for coming and hanging the sign that they used at the high school graduation, congratulating kids as they came under it. coming to the ceremony. So it was awesome that, he was there. And also the folks, new Trenton neighbors up at Plants Unlimited, and they donated all the plants that surrounded the stage that was there. And so that was really nice. So it was just a lovely event. And in the meantime, I was able to get, after gathering all the photos from the woman who came and took the photos, I put them all into folders for each individual family, sent that out to the families with the links to the video that was done, and the song and the slideshow, so that they got a nice little package of that, after the event. So summer school, like I said, there's 24 kids that began on the 6th, and because it's remote, one of the things that has made that a little, I think a little bit more targeted is, as you can see, I have the list of staff that are taking part, and they always had a meeting and sort of divvied up all the kids. Of course, the extended school year kids go with the special ed folks, but everybody else sort of divvy up the kids who've had good success with them. And so far, what I've learned that, things are going well. Everybody got their devices, and anybody that needed a hotspot did that. And there's been a couple technical glitches, but, other than that, doing the more targeted amount of time seems to be working really well. We had 7 students from Trenton do the summer enrichment activities, which involved either writing or robotics. There's a sort of an exercise regimen, a whole variety of things, and we had 7 students take part in that, and that's pretty good. So I'm proud of them. And I also wanted to share that, I have put together a safe return team from Trenton, and I listed those folks there, and I'll be sending out a note. We had an A-team meeting today and an elementary principals meeting to sort of help shape what decisions that we need to make on a school level. And I have already sent out information to that team prior. I sent them readings and some Google Docs to start putting in questions, that they feel that we need to answer. And then we'll have a first meeting really soon. And in my report, there's the list of those teachers and staff. So it's a mix of our counselor, elementary teacher, middle school teacher, support staff, nurse, facilities director, food service, AD. We have Cindy Lambert as the association rep, and I'm going to add a special ed teacher. I didn't have a special ed teacher in there, so I want to make sure I have somebody from that team on that team. The other thing I wanted to make you aware of that I didn't put in my the principal's report is that I sit on the kindergarten think tank, and that's the group that has been meeting for the last couple of Thursdays, trying to think through what kindergarten would look like. Kindergarten is a pretty specific beast, and we have been discussing, our thoughts on that and what we want to bring to the larger task force. So we've sort of been hashing that out, and Thursday is our last meeting, and then the task force will get what our recommendations are. So that's been fun to do the readings and to sort of talk about what kindergarten could look like we return to school. And then the other thing I wanted to share is that Aaron called me a couple of weeks ago and talking about ASP and the fact that, we ended school in March, and there are some families who full pay. So I have Steph looking back at the records to take a peek at our list of parents that full pay, and then I will generate a letter on that because, they could be owed some amount from that March to June. But I'll lay that out, and once I have that list of families. Let's see. And then I listed just a shout out. I listed the names of those students who got that extra bit in terms of the, doing the summer enrichment program, going above and beyond. And the fact that in school wellness, I just wanted to make it clear that, the leadership team, that's going to be a huge piece of our work when we start meeting, talking about what plans will look like for the social emotional learning. And we had started our plan before we left and kind of refined it a little bit but a big piece of that is staff wellness. And I think that will be hugely important in any sort of mode that we return to school. So that'll be a big part of our plan. Facilities. With meals, we're doing 22 meals that are going out to families, and we're still participating. We have families, 5 families participating in the backpack program, so that's still happening. And then I added the press release that came out of Healthy Acadia in terms of what they're doing to promote what we have been doing for years on making sure that our garden is a really strong part of our school and our food service. And I was amazed that we had 51 students who had signed up for the little gardens, starter gardens. And, that with the help of Snow Ross, our 3rd grade teacher, who's doing that work and is our garden coordinator, and the folks at Healthy Acadia, Nicole Guerreri, who helped get that started. So that was pretty exciting. And then I don't know if you guys remember, but long ago, one of our milk coolers died. And I mentioned it in a meeting long ago. And we felt it was actually Teresa who found a state grant, applied for it, probably in early March, late February. And we didn't hear until this week, or did she tell me just last week that we got the grant? So we got a $3,500 grant to replace that cooler. So that was exciting. And maintenance staff has been working on getting everything ready here at school and getting rooms ready and doing the cleaning that needs to be done. Still waiting on lists in talking about, the need to move couches out of rooms, the question about curtains. If they're curtains on the window, can they stay? But if they're the curtains that are where teachers store things, do those need to be removed because people touch them? Bean bags we know have to be removed. There's some questions about rugs, maybe the smaller throw rugs. Yes, bigger rugs. There's their team that's working on that to give us the answers. So, and so, we're working on packing everything up. Things that were staff owned, those are going into the gym for them to pick up. Anything that was school owned, then we're going to put those pieces into storage. Like rugs, we're going to have to wrap those up pretty good, just because our storage areas are.
Mike, rugs don't have a good future. Just saying.
We're going to wrap them up in
Because
plastic.
like,
Really
you can
tight.
wrap them up, but we don't want to deal with mold after
No,
Corona.
we don't. We don't. But we're going to try. We'll see what happens. And then, like I said last time, I have multiple teachers doing a variety of professional development, particularly around math and reading. And we are using our school Title I funds from the state to pay for all of that. So I have teachers, some of my elementary and middle school teachers doing at least 3 of the math programs so that they're learning how to best maximize the Eureka program and being able to customize and differentiate. And that'll be really important when we go back to school. So I'm really proud of all of them taking time to sort of get ready. And then we have a lot of folks doing work on reading as well. So people are keeping very busy during the summer. And I think that's all that I had for principal's report.
All right, thank you. I did want to add under the food portion that, and I don't think you mentioned it, that Snow got in touch. I think either she put it on the Trenton
She did.
Facebook page or something like that, indicating that if people wanted to come and they lived in Trenton, get in touch with her and she would be handing out food from the greenhouse, all the vegetables. And I think she had a great success with that. And, people came at the time they were told to come and the food was bagged and, it was all social distance kind of thing, but it was offered to anybody who lived in Trenton. And I think a lot of people came.
They did. What Snow did, thank you for bringing that up, Jen. I had forgotten about that. And when I drive in, I see the cooler sitting right there. We've had lettuce and radishes have been the big thing that are ready to go. So Snow has come and clipped those. She talked to me first and said if it was okay to put that out there. And we talked about how to do it well. And so we had the idea of having the cooler, and then she would put everything in the bags with the names on it of people that contacted her, and then they would show up at the time, go to the cooler and pull it out, and off they went. And so as things grow, I think that's just a really good way of giving back to the community, and provide some fresh vegetables. And then as as we get closer to our time in school, and if we're back, then we will definitely utilize all of that. So
Yeah, awesome. Okay, Superintendent's Report. Mark, you're up.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah.
I'll try to be brief because last night we held a very long meeting, and I think a lot of the information people may want to know was included in that meeting. Certainly there was, and very appropriately, a lot of public comment on racism. And so if people are looking to go back into the AOS meeting, probably the first 3/4 of that meeting would be geared towards that issue, and appropriately so. But if folks are wanting to have more information about the safe return to schools, that was in the latter portion. I'll try to be succinct around that. I know folks want information, parents, teachers, and they want a plan, and we're working day and night to bring forward recommendations. It is, and I don't want to minimize it, it's not as simple as people think. There are many, many variables to navigate, and we're really not trying to dodge a question. I want people to know that. It was very clear to me that people, whatever the plan or plans may be, they want to know them sooner rather than later. So, but I think it's important for me to acknowledge it would be wrong for me to announce anything premature of what the advisory committee is recommending. And so I think we're on a solid timeline. I'm going to work hard at giving specifics without tying the hands of that advisory committee. I really think that's important. So I'll have more on that. I think the other thing that I want to talk about, and just I want to underscore a couple of things Mike said. I just want to acknowledge the staff. They've gone above and beyond. And, I'll extend out staff to be school board and community members too, who have helped, whether it be the backpack programs, food service, just being patient, flexible. These are tough times for all of us. We're all working towards the same thing, supporting kids, supporting our communities. And I think, one of the things I've been trying to think about is just being kind, because it is a stressful time. I know it's stressful for me. I don't know about others, but being kind, being patient, and listening, trying to do all those things. So I just, before we go into budget, I want to acknowledge and thank people for that. Michael's done a really good job and outlining what we need to talk about, which is our budget, which is really important. So I just want to say a couple of things before we go into that, and these are observations, and I want them to be taken positively and constructively. Right now, we are a couple of weeks into the next fiscal year, and we do not have a budget. What does that mean? That means by law, we're operating under the last year's fiscal year budget, which is the FY20 budget. The problem with that is that we have things that we have to navigate, contracts, a number of other things that the school committee is well aware of, but I want the public to know that we don't have a budget per se for FY21 to support all of our students and all those requests. The school committee began this process along with administration back in the fall, as we traditionally do. We've worked hard to be sensitive to the times that we're in, to be cognizant of the times we're in. We've worked across the AOS with town managers and councils during this difficult time for everyone, and acknowledge that. Yet we still don't have a budget and we still don't have a plan. And that's unfortunate, because during these times, we need to be innovative. I want to reach out again, going into tonight's select board meeting, that I think it's incumbent upon us to work together collaboratively to figure out how to do this. This isn't up to the school department, obviously, to determine how to do that, but we've successfully had drive-in town meetings in all of our communities or past our budgets. And I see no reason why we can't work collaboratively to do that in Trenton. It's unfortunate that we don't have a schedule or a plan, and I hope that we can come out tonight with a plan. It's important for people to know that right now, lacking a town meeting or a commitment, we're going to have to make some really tough decisions that are going to impact our students and our staff and our school. And it doesn't have to be that way, and it shouldn't be that way. Simply committing an amount to taxes is by default cutting the community voice out, and that's not okay. The community needs to decide this, and they need to be given the opportunity to decide it. And putting this off is unfair. And I'll stop there. I hope that we can work together to schedule a meeting as soon as possible. The fact of the matter is that the school's not available, and that's not no one's fault. It's not the town's fault. We're following protocols, but we can hold a drive-in meeting. There's no reason not to. It does not have to be at MDI High School. It could be in the parking lot. It does not have to come at great expense. There's a template. We have another one scheduled for the town of Mount Desert, August 11th. We have held drive-in meeting. We held a drive-in graduation. We held a drive-in town meeting for the town of Bar Harbor. We held a successful budget meeting for the high school. And I just think that it's important to move forward. With that, I'd like to put the budget into context. This is a tough budget year. Forget COVID-19 for a second. If we were just putting that out there in terms of any impact potentially, that in and of itself is significant. Yet we come to the community with yet again another budget that is not palatable for anybody. But let's put it into context. This budget is a sound budget, and it's a budget that should be supported by the community for the following reasons. There's no fluff here. There's no wants, there's needs. This budget, if you put it into context, most of the increase that we're talking about, and it is a significant increase, I don't want to minimize that, is really born out of unanticipated or known special education costs. Those are mandated costs. The $240,000 increase to this budget, $193,000 of that are from mandated special education costs. And I really think it's important people know that going in, that this isn't a budget that is a lot of fluff. It's not a budget that is supporting big increases in one particular area. It's a budget that addresses mandated and responsible costs to support students with special needs. If that item were removed, and it should not be removed, it's our responsibility, our collective responsibility. This budget would be somewhere in the order of less than 2% of an increase, less than 2%. That's less than the COLA. It's probably, just want to put it in context and perspective. So the school committee has some tough decisions. Michael's done an incredible job. Nancy's done an incredible job. He's going to bring some recommendations in a moment. They're painful. We have tightened our belt to the maximum. And I'm in complete support of what Michael is going to recommend to the school committee. And I hope, again, I want to close by saying that I hope we can work together to move forward. I understand there are positions that are diametrically opposed, but there's no reason we can't sit down and move forward and talk about how to move forward in the best interest of students and the community. Thank you, Jennifer. That's my report.
Thank you, Mark. All right, we've got the budget discussion and recommendations. Mike?
So, but before we get started, I just want to sort of remind folks of what back in March you supported a budget that included the special education teacher for K2 that was supporting some incoming students, and that is seen as a smart move educationally and economically because the cost of two ed techs $90,000 and the cost of a trained special ed teacher to support those kids and knowing their needs, that would be better, for them overall. And so that was in there. Also in that budget was the $22,500 to support behavior specialist for the district. And that was part of that overall budget. And in there were other pieces and what we were anticipating for insurance, what we were anticipating for heating oil. There were some other pieces in there in terms of needs in my office and supporting the person who steps in when I'm not here, and leadership team stipend for the work that they do, and what our thoughts were around secondary tuition, what that could look like. Since that time, we've had an opportunity in working with Nancy that some of those numbers have come down. And what I wanted to propose to you all today, and what I sent out earlier on that page 1 of the fiscal year 21 potential Trenton school budget, which I'm going to show on my screen in a minute, is I'm going to propose version 3, which is that green cell version. So, but before I did that, I wanted to sort of set where we were. At that time, when we shared that budget with the town, we were looking at an 11.65 increase, and that was $126.65 increase per 100,000 on valuation. And that's what we supported at that time, based on the landscape that was in front of us. So now, Josh showed me how to do this, so I'm going to share my screen and hopefully this will work. Oh, and there it is. Let me make it bigger so folks can see it. So what I'm proposing is that green cell, and sort of let me tell you, the pieces of that. So the first part that is there is the secondary tuition. I had looked at that with Nancy and went back to the high school and looked at my numbers at Ellsworth High School and found that we had lost some students. The original number was 59 students plus 8 is what we put in our budget on March 10th. And after talking with Nancy and looking historically, I felt it comfortable saying that we would go with +6 instead of the +8, and that would be able to cover us, and that would save us some significant monies, towards the budget. The next piece was I removed the leadership team stipends and the stipend for the person who steps in for me. I'm able to get leadership team paid for through our Title I designation with the state, so that sort of helped with that. The other piece, we got our insurance number in between that time, so you can see that savings there. It came in at 6%, we budgeted at 10. Our heating oil came in lower than what we had anticipated, so we had savings there. Also, we decided to take out the behavior specialist, and not because that's not a need, is that all of us working together in the AOS, all of the principals and folks who are tied to organizations within communities that support social emotional needs of kids, came together to come up with the funds to support that position. And Mark talked about that at the AOS meeting, yesterday, and that position is going to get funded for 2 years. And the money for that's going to come from a variety of sources, and not from school budgets. And so that was, what a great thing. Folks in communities understood the need, put that position is going to be hugely important here. It was already, and with where we are right now, even more so. And then finally, you know, as I had shared with you, our special ed tech and secretary, that position, and unfortunately, you know, Beverly had passed away. But over the summer, we have lost a number of students in special ed that that half-time position sort of supported those. And after meeting with my special ed staff, we felt comfortable that you know, we didn't need to hire another ed tech, and I'm going to work on spreading that special ed secretary position out to current positions. So savings $30,000 there. So for the total, saving $130,367. And then you could look at what that overall budget increase is, budget to budget, which is the 5.9%, and then increase the town
Mike.
appropriation. Yeah.
I apologize for interrupting, but I just want to call attention to what you just said. That position, special ed secretary, ed tech, the work doesn't go away. It's really important, folks. I know the school committee knows this, and that work is just being redistributed, and it does not. I think it's important when I go back to what I said, these are needs, not wants. We are watering down these supports that have been built that show the success and capacity of this school. I want to be careful as I say this, but we're dismantling a very effective system by doing some of these painful and necessary cuts. I want to put that into context once again. And I commend Michael and his staff for doing this work, because it's work that has to be done during this time. But make no mistake about it. When I say I support it, reluctantly, because we have to make some hard choices, and Michael is making those hard choices, and that's leadership. But they come with a cost, and they come with a price, literally.
Thanks, Mark. And so in the end, you could see what that increase is per 100,000, and then what our total budget number would be. So I guess, you know, if there's any questions on that person, I do want to address the blue version and some of my evolving thoughts on that. But if people had questions about version 3.
I have a question. If we don't know if we're going back to school or not in school, and not knowing about sports, or if sports have been canceled already, if we weren't paying those stipends, can we put that into this green box as well? Or do we just not have those answers yet, so we can't?
Jennifer, may I respond?
Yes.
I think, first of all, I want to address it two ways. We have no intention of releasing stipends or contracts or working agreements if we're not actively involved in those activities. That would not be responsible on our part. Now, I know there was some things in the spring people questioned, but let's face it, it was March 13th. We went out and everybody in the world thought, is this going to be 2 weeks? Is it going to be 2 months? We did not know. We're in a different place now. And so with regard to co-curricular activities, to include athletics activities, we're not going to release anything. I would be reluctant to recommend we put it in that category, because when we return, we're going to need that. Now, there could be and should be some savings if we don't have that. That would go to carry forward, but I would be reluctant to recommend putting that in that box for that reason.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I think, Jennifer, in my part in answering, when we go to page 2 on this and sort of thinking about, until we get a budget, we have that differential. And so thinking about going forward, you know, in that sort of tier 1 scenario, there might be some tweaking when we get to that, to talk about, you know, whether or not, all right, we'll start with, if we don't have a budget for the fall, well, then maybe we need to look at not having soccer and cross country. And then, so what is that? Where is, you know, what's that savings if we're in school? So those are, you know, I think those are the things we have to think about.
Jennifer?
Yes.
I just want to interject a point on that. Michael has made some very painful recommendations here to the board to consider. But I just want to clarify, if we get to the point where we continue to not have a budget, or we have a budget that does not support the needs of our students academically in all those areas, we're going to have to make some further decisions. And the first things that are going to come, and these will have to come through administration and board approved, are going to have to be from activities to include athletics, music, art, those types of things. And those are going to be even more painful and more devastating. But the one thing that we will not be able to cut and cannot cut are going to be mandated services to our
Mhm.
students. In addition, the one thing we're not going to cut are mandated contractual agreements to include busing and other areas. So this is not intended to be received as an ultimatum. It's not. These are facts, and the facts are undisputed when you look at the numbers. And Michael has, there's nothing left. Let me go one step further. We've been talking about solar, which I'm a huge proponent and advocate for. This doesn't include doing anything with a roof. I want to be clear about that. We're not doing a thing with that roof and not doing anything. And if anybody's looking at our maintenance reserve line, which is, was it 60,000?
I
I
think
would
so.
recommend touching that because we potentially could have some issues that we need to look at with water and other areas and ventilation. This is not roof for solar time. So,
No.
and if there's a motion to add that as an article, which that's going to be tacked on to what Michael is proposing and make that number go up. So again, we got to keep our eye on the prize and keep it in perspective. I say this with all due respect because I think the school committee understands this and knows this, but the general public needs to be aware of what we're grappling with. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Mark, because we don't know if we end up going back to school, what the mandates might be. We might need that money for construction. Go ahead, Mike.
I didn't know if there were any other questions around the green version. I do just want to talk a little bit about the blue version, which was one of the other options and what I shared with you all in my email when I sent it. You know, the addition there was the after school program, but I've thought a little bit about that since that time. Evolution is good in thinking. And if we find ourselves, back in school, that after school time, and that program might look different, and that money may be necessary to support kids who, lost some ground during that time that we were out of school and to provide those services. So it may not be the after school program of the past, but it may be the after school program that we need in terms of supporting our kids and making sure that they're all making the appropriate gains moving forward. So I'm kind of reluctant that I put it out there. As I thought about it, that money may be really useful for supporting more targeted sort of tutoring, after school, if we find ourselves back in to support those kids who may really need it. Because, we probably can't have the after school program that we've had in the past in terms of following social distancing rules and making sure that sort of kids are safe with the number of staff there, but that money could be used in an environment in which tutoring is taking place in a way that can be done thoughtfully and help move them forward. So, I put it there for people to look at, but again, after thinking about it, that might be, money that we could, really use. There is some money, Mark mentioned last night, as a district, we got $90,000 or something like that. And we worked as a team of sort of, figuring out how best to use that money as a district. Some of that money is going to the social worker, the psychologist, to help support us. Some of that money is sort of put aside for if there are needed supplies outside of what we would normally receive to help schools in that area. So, that money is going to use. And there was a little bit that we put aside in thinking about some kind of after school programming because
Let me just add to that piece quickly, Jennifer, if I may.
Yes.
I want to put this into context so the public knows. This CARES Act funding, this magical pool of money, the entire amount received by the AOS is approximately 80,000. I think it's 77,000. Nancy can confirm that. To put it in context, the Ellsworth School Department received, I believe, somewhere in the order of 200,000, 2.25, maybe 280, somewhere in that ballpark. Don't quote me, but the money is distributed based on the funding formula. We are a minimal receiver, so I don't want people to think that there's this magical pool of money that are shucked away. And to that point, we haven't begun to even talk about the unanticipated costs connected to COVID-19. So that is above and beyond everything we're talking about. And I'm just going to say again, we've tightened our belt. We've scoured every account. And if I've missed something, Michael's missed something, or there's somebody out there that knows something, or there's a better plan, I'm sure Nancy Thurlow hasn't missed it. And she's in on this to be able to answer any questions, because I'll just say with Nancy, in terms of what she does with our budgets, which is amazing, if there's something we haven't thought of, I'm sure that check and balance is there.
Thank you, Mark.
So, that was my thinking around version 5 when I sent it to you, and then now you've heard my sort of the evolution of that thinking. So my recommendation to the school board, would be to support, that version, that version 3 with that total number. After speaking with Carol at the town office and Nancy, about, I know that the budget that we passed on the 10th is in the book, but there's still time to insert new warrants that would reflect that version of the budget.
Okay, now this is something we need to vote on, and correct? We need a motion?
That would be our recommendation, Jennifer. If you want to, you have two options. Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong. You can just hold fast on what you voted on previously, which is, I believe, is in the town report. Or if you want to approve the recommendation or any of the recommendations or versions Michael's recommending, you would need to vote, and then that would be an adjustment. I believe adjustments on the floor, but at a minimum, inserts to the town report. Is that correct, Nancy?
Actually, they haven't done their final warrant, so we can get it without doing amendments. We can get the revised articles. I have to get to Carol very soon, so that we would have to vote today and vote a figure for the budget.
Okay. Mike, I'm a visual person. Can you take that down now so I can see my board members?
Oh, yes, I can.
Thanks. Okay. What is everybody's feelings on the new budget or the new numbers that Mike has brought up? Does anybody have, any questions or comments they want to make before a motion is made? Gary, I'll pick you first.
No, I support version 3 as proposed. Not thrilled, would like to keep it in there just in case extra students, high school students come in or something else happens. But in this time, I figure it's the responsible thing to do, at least. And the after school program, a lot of the community members really use it. And I think it's valuable for this community, especially since people are going back to work more.
Mm-hmm. Darcy, your turn.
Will the town see what we've changed if we just change it? Though, are they going to know that you made all these good decisions? And
Jennifer, may I?
Yes.
Well, two things, Darcy. We have a meeting at 7 tonight, so hopefully we'll present, depending upon what the school committee may choose to do. If they choose to make a change, we'll update them. And then certainly, I think we need to work really with the town to get this information out to the community through the newspaper, through reports, across the board, to let them know what the information is, the impact, and And so the short answer is yes, we're going to have to do some legwork in communicating. And hopefully we can do that collaboratively with the town and, other partners.
Thank you. But yes, I support it if we are going to decide.
Okay, Aaron?
I think it's amazing. That's a lot of work. I think I'm continually impressed at what you guys are able to do. I think version 3 is an incredible feat. It's hard, and it's been hard the whole time. But yeah, I support version 3 for sure.
All right, thank you. And Tom?
Yeah, I support it. I do get concerned with all the future unknowns, and but since they're unknown and we can't really do anything about it, and so I think we should just put out a good budget that is best for the town and best for the school as we can do. And if we have to jump off that bridge later, we'll jump off it together, holding hands.
Yeah. And how much do we have to pay for tuition for our kids to the high school? Like to go from 6 back to the 8, what is that dollar value?
12,895, Nancy. That's
Yeah, I think that's with the extra 10%. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
So we're talking another 25,000. All right. I mean, you know me, I'd rather have that number be at 10 because I like to prepare. I don't like getting nervous and be told later. But I think, it's what we're going to have to do for right now. As the chair of the school board, I'll make the motion. I'll take the heat and then I'll pass it on to Mike.
Mark
So-
has his hand up.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't see him on that page. Go ahead.
Sorry, Jennifer, I just
No,
want to
that's okay.
say, with respect to tuition, I agree. And I think the school committee's making the right decision based on the information. But I think Nancy will applaud me and you may shoot me. But when we come out of this, and we will come out of this, I think it's time for the school committee to look at establishing a tuition reserve account. We've done that in other communities. And again, this is not the time to do that, but it would cushion us in future for these types of things. Again, when we try to do budgets, we want to avoid those hills and valleys. And, again, this is the way to go. And that's the way we try to do our budgets, but these are extraordinary times. But I would advocate and hope we keep in our front mirror the tuition reserve account, because I think the school committee's done a good job with planning for those. And frankly, they've been right on those. So hopefully we're going to dodge a bullet here by tightening our belt.
Yeah, I hope so too. Okay, so I make a motion to amend the school budget to $4,261,405. Any questions or comments? Not
Gary
seeing any.
seconded.
You need a Jennifer.
Oh,
you need a
sorry,
second
that's right. I apologize.
Gary second.
Question.
Any questions or comments?
Question.
Yes, Mark?
Nancy, could you please verify the amount?
Yes. That's correct.
That's version 3.
Version 3, yes.
Thank you.
All those in favor, and please state your name. Gary?
Gary approved.
Darcy?
Aaron, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Aaron.
Aaron approved.
Sorry, my connection.
Did we get an approval from Darcy? She's frozen on my screen.
She's frozen on mine.
I
Okay.
believe I heard her voice, but somebody also have to confirm.
Connection was bad. I approve. Sorry.
Okay, there you go.
My
Thank you,
internet's
Darcy.
cutting in and out. Sorry.
And Tom
Tom approve.
and Jennifer approve. So moved. Thank you, everybody. Tough decisions, but you know what? We have to do what we have to do. That's why we're here. Other business. Is there any?
I don't know if people wanted to look at page 2, or we'll wait till after tonight to talk about operating on the F-20 budget. Or
Michael, I would recommend we wait, Mike.
Yeah,
All right.
So
You-
let's hope that tonight is a very positive meeting, that people recognize that you've done some good work, and we'll see where we come. But I think we could and should hold on that at
Okay.
this time.
No, but it's good that you guys have that information to be able to look at and know. So, and that document, I may add things in terms of, as I think about savings, because people share ideas, and sometimes that helps, and it'd be a nice place to have that stuff collected. I did have
Mike-
one other business.
Mike, just before we move on to that, I just want to say this. I don't want anybody out there to assume or interpret that any of the items on that. I think the reason to hold on that is nobody needs to feel there's ultimatums or that this is forcing anybody's hand. That's not. However, people need to consider the impact. And to Darcy's point, we got to get out there and show impact based upon ultimately what people do or do not decide to do. But nobody should feel threatened or forced, and that's not the tactic we want to employ. Again, I think it's important. These are tough times. We work together. We find what that common ground is. We recognize that these are tough times, but the only way we get through this is by working together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Tom here. For my mind, I don't mind deferring discussion on it another month, especially with it being summer months. Expenses are slightly lower, but I do want us to, if we don't get good news or have a town meeting come up, we will have to next month spend a long time really discussing, using the scalpel, because running off of last year's budget, and I really, truly in my heart feel that we're going to have a pretty big impact of COVID in this next month. And we need to keep that aware and not just rest on our laurels of a good 3 weeks.
I to Tom's point, if I may, I agree with Tom. I
Mhm.
just want to say this, and I know it has not been received well in the past, but there is another option, and there is a special ed reserve. But that is something that has not been a consideration in the past by the town. But that is another option. If I don't want people to forget that.
Thank you. Okay, other business.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to give an update. Last time we spoke, I talked about, Gary had asked about the SEOC report, and the one recommendation out of there was talking to the folks at the Bangor Regional Program, otherwise known as SPRC, the Southern Penobscot Regional Program. And I want folks to know that I have been in contact with Christina Babin. Last week, we talked on the phone for about an hour, and she is working some numbers together for me to be able to bring to you all in terms of what cost might be. And we talked a little bit about the process of becoming part of that. Since we are our own entity, we wouldn't necessarily have to, it wouldn't be an AOS thing. It would be, something that Trenton would do. She was going to put together what the tuition costs were, what the fees were, and then what the process would be to join, so I can bring that to the board. One of the things that she did highlight for me, because we talked a lot about transportation and how that would be a huge part of our costs. And I talked to you all at our last meeting of what the potential costs are in terms of whether parents drive, but we can always rely on and shouldn't expect parents to have to take their kids to school. But that is an option, and it has been done. Taxis have often been used. I didn't have that information for you last time, but if we were to employ a taxi, if that was appropriate, that's up to $38,000 to get kids to Bangor. There is an option using a program if a child is eligible for main care called Links that Christina shared with me. That is a possibility, but that's main care dependent. And then, of course, I shared with you that I did speak with the superintendent, Jim Boothby in Bucksport, about if we only had to drive students to Bucksport and then they would take students. We haven't talked about an amount, but it would probably be conceivably less than what it would be to pay a taxi to bring kids there. But that's going to be a big delta or question in terms of if we utilize that program. If it comes in that it's around $30,000 as compared to $70,000, that is a difference. But that transportation piece, both time and how long it takes children to get there. Christina did share that they have kids from Lincoln coming down that are within the collaborative. So it's not unusual for schools farther away. And so I just wanted to let you all know that I was still on it, still waiting for that information from Christina, and I will bring it forward as soon as I have it, so we could talk a little bit more about it.
Jennifer,
Yes.
on that piece, I just want to make sure too, folks, the school committee knows and the community knows, I'm aware that there's a school evaluation option committee report. Kudos to the folks that did time and effort on that work, but we need to put some things in context, and Mike alluded to one. And I think it's important to be transparent when we're talking about costs, because if we're talking about the Spruce program, we need to put it in context, and certainly transportation is one. In my previous position, I was the fiscal agent for the Spring Harbor program, which was the collaborative in Cumberland County, and we also ran a day treatment program through the Sebago Alliance. So I'm very familiar with those programs, but there are other pieces to consider, and when we're comparing them, we need to compare them squarely, not apples versus oranges. So I know that's going to be presented at town meeting when that occurs, and we'll be prepared to answer or address any questions. Michael's done a good first start at getting out there to make sure, because it is important. If there's a better option out there, a more cost-effective option, and we haven't identified it, we ought to be using it. So I just want to make sure people know, along with everything else that we're working on, that is also right at the top of our priorities. So thank you.
Thank you. Did any public comments come in during the meeting at all to you, Mark or Mike?
I've not received a message from Selena, and there may have been, but I'm not aware of any. And if we do, we'll report them at the next meeting. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. The next regular meeting is Tuesday, August 11th at 4:30. I think that if tonight does not go well, maybe we should meet before that to discuss the sharpening of the pencil, so that at the August meeting, we would be able to, discuss and firm up what we'd have to get rid of if it doesn't go well tonight. But as of right now, the meeting is Tuesday, August 11th. Any future agenda items? Mike?
Well, by that time, should we put on a safe return to schools would probably be something I could report out on the, my group and the task force.
Mm-hmm. Anybody have anything else? All right, then a motion to adjourn would be acceptable.
Don't move, Tom.
Second.
All those in favor? I think everyone's in favor.
Thank you, everyone.
Carrier